Good evening. Good evening, guys. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi.
Hey, everybody. So
Hey,
this
cousin.
is, I'll wait before we do the introduction of everything, give everybody a chance to get in. I'm a little early, so we'll get back to it. I'll mute everybody, and then I'll unmute you guys at about 2 minutes after.
Okay.
All righty.
Hey,
All
where
right,
your
guys.
headphones?
Guy is working on it.
It's 7 o'clock.
Guys.
Okay, at least I know it is a problem.
Good evening. Can everybody hear?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. All right. So,
Hi, everybody.
a new platform, Zoom.
Tomorrow, try mom's
If you
computer
have
too.
any noise in your background, you can mute yourself. But I'm gonna mute everybody once I give you introduce the class.
That has an
This is a new platform where I
Like,
can actually talk to you guys. You can talk to me.
Hi, everybody.
I know they can hear me.
If you are in a noisy background, kind of move somewhere where you can have a quiet environment for the class.
Turn that down.
Because we can't hear each other. I will mute the thing during the class though, because this is going to be a recorded video. Once the class is over, after each class, I will download the videos and I will send everybody a separate link. So the same way you downloaded the link when you first purchased the class, you'll get an email that say that the link has been updated, and the updated link will have the link to the YouTube private video for this class for both days. So it's a lot easier now than having to go on Facebook and find the videos and everything. Now you can actually download the videos to your computer and go back and watch them anytime.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, this is a lot better. This is why I'm able to do so much more with it. It's also helpful because when we're in smaller groups, I can actually see what you're doing and you can see what I'm doing if we were working together. So when I do smaller classes, it'll be a lot easier to actually work together. So tonight is the first night. We're going to start by baking our cake tonight. I'm going to do 6-inch layers. The recipe that I'm going to do, you can pretty much make a 2-tier cake from it, which would be a two inch layers of 6 and 8 inch rounds. Or you can do 3 to 4 8-inch round layers. But I'm going to do it in the 6 inch so I can show you the variation from the original cake was done in 8-inch layers, 4 2-inch layers of 8-inch cake. So we're going to do it in a smaller cake tonight, and then I'll go over some of the other things about tomorrow night's class before we end the class. All right? Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get started. I'm going to go ahead and mute you guys, and we'll get right into the class. All right, guys. So the recipe, if you've taken any of the baking classes, the Baking 101 class, if you've taken any of the previous classes with me, you'll know that this recipe looks very familiar. This is my go-to recipe. I call it my no-fail recipe. I've used it the entire time that I've been doing cakes, and I've never had any problems with it. So I pretty much call this a dunk method type of cake because you really cannot mess it up. No matter what you do, it's not gonna mess up. So we start out by doing all of our wet ingredients. It's the recipe calls for buttermilk, and the reason why I use buttermilk instead of whole milk is because buttermilk has the most fat content, and which gives your cake a lot more moisture. So you're gonna start out with all of your wet ingredients. The recipe was in your download. If you go back to your digital download, the recipe is on there as well. So we just start out with 6 eggs. I always suggest cracking your eggs inside of a measuring cup versus cracking them straight into your bowl. This is just a little basics for the baking basics, so that you don't get any shells inside of your cake. So just I'm gonna add my eggs in. I'm gonna add 2 cups of buttermilk.
Yes. And what happened?
1 cup of water. Let that mix. And like I said, you can't mess this up no matter how you put the ingredients in, but I always start off with wet ingredients. All right. Now I'm going to do 1 cup of oil in there with the mixture. And then I'm going to add my shield guard to it so nothing splashes everywhere when I can add all the ingredients in there. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, you'll know that this shield is your best friend. I have already turned my oven on. I preheat my oven. Your oven temperatures may vary. I know I have an electric oven, so I try to keep my oven around the 330 to 340 range. Sometimes I don't do 350 at all. I usually bake at 330. I bake slower, so I get a more even layered, more even baking temperature. All right, so we're gonna add in a cup of sugar. Next thing is gonna be 2 cups of flour. You can sift this flour. You sift your flour if you use it, cake flour or anything. You can sift the flour after you just doing it. Also, I use the Pillsbury flour, baking flour, because it's just to me, it's just if this recipe just does really well with it. Now you can use whatever cake mix of your choice that you want to use, but everybody know me, know I am an advocate for Duncan Hines, so I'm using Duncan Hines cake mix. I got smart over the years with Duncan Hines because I used the product so much that I actually bought stock in the company. So if that's just a little tip for you, if you use something a lot, I really suggest that you get you a little bit of knowledge in the stock market and start putting your money into it. You're already giving them your money. They might as well make you some money too. Even though the stock market bad right now, so I just let everybody just watch. I just watch it now. All right, so you want to speed it up and let that all blend together.
Now all of a sudden you want to be this hero and you want to try this. You're not ready. I've been watching you. I gave you this for a reason. You played. Here's what you're going to do.
Get off, move.
Make sure you scrape your bowl. Size of your bowl, just depending on your mixer. I know sometimes my KitchenAid doesn't get to the bottom of the bowl, so I have to go back and scrape the whole thing down. All right. All right, so this is where I add in my flavor. Now y'all done seen me talk about the flavoring a lot. This is the Wedding Bell flavor from Cake Cakes, etc. out of New Orleans, Erica. I use this flavor for pretty much everything. Now I love it. I've always been a lover of her flavor. I don't measure anything. I just kind of use the squirt bottle to just I know how many squirts I put in mine. You can do it to your liking. Some people do 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons or something. This is an emulsion flavor, so you really don't have to use a lot of it. I just love the smell and the taste of it. So if you have it, you'll know already. You can attest to it that the flavoring is amazing and it smells amazing. All right, so that should be all mixed up pretty good now. Make sure you have no lumps in there. I realize that everybody is not an expert baker, so if some of this stuff sounds like it is juvenile to you, everybody is not at the same level, and these classes are pretty much made for any skill level. So I try to make sure I go over all of the basics of things as well as some terms that you'll hear later on, more advanced terms. All right, so I'm gonna spray my pans down. Like I said, I'm doing 4 6-inch round pans. I may not need 4 because sometimes I try to torte my cakes as well. And if you're not familiar with torting is just when you cut the layers, the one layer, cut it in half. So it just to add another filling inside of it. That just gives the cake more height. And I love the way it looks when you cut into the cake and you can actually see the filling inside of the cake, an even filling. So go ahead and spray your pans down. I sent you guys all of the recipe and everything early, just in case you wanted to work along with me. I know a couple people emailed me about working along with me. All right. Now, if you are not too familiar with baking, if this is your first cake baking, always fill your pan 2/3 of the way full. 2/3 means it's not all the way full, but it's just enough to the top to where you can actually cut off the dome that bakes. This cake does bake up with a dome on it. I know some people can get it to bake. Some people bake even. I don't care about the evenness or all of that other layers or baking with strips and all of that. Y'all know I do not believe in buying tools and stuff that I don't particularly have a need for. So if it bakes up with a dome on it, I just cut it off, the tops of it off, and use the tops for cake pops or use it for something else. It's not gonna go to waste, so you don't have to worry about it. I do not use Baker's Joy because I have really bad allergies, and when I spray Baker's Joy, I can't breathe. So I stopped using Baker's Joy early in my baking career. You can tap your pans on the counter just to release some of the air out of there. You guys seen this? This is the old thing. I learned this from my great grandmother when I was growing up. It just releases the air out of it, and you'll actually see the air bubbles rising to the top. That gets all the air out of there. When people always ask why my cakes have all them holes and stuff in it, sometimes it has a lot of air in it, or you've overmixed it. So as you can see, I only mixed it everything enough just to incorporate all the ingredients together. I just didn't mix it and walk off and do another thing and then come back 20 minutes later and the mix is still going. Okay. So you want to get all of it out. Get all your air out. All right. So I bake these. Always put your cakes in the middle rack. It really, to me, it doesn't matter. It's a preference. Some people do not like baking multiple cakes in the oven together. I don't know who told you that there was a issue that you can't do that. I don't know, but you can put all them cakes in the oven together on top and all the racks together. If you're worried about them burning, rotate them. All right, so I'm going to set my timer for probably about 40 minutes. I'll let them bake about 40 minutes. So look, sometimes it takes maybe 50 or so, 50 minutes or so on there. All right, so I'm going to unmute you guys if anybody has a question so far. All right. All right. Anybody have any questions so far? Everybody good?
Hello.
Anybody have any questions so far?
The person who do wedding bell.
Her name is Erica. If you go on my Instagram page, it will say it on there. It's cake, etc. It should be a picture of the bottle of the flavoring on there.
Okay. On the cake, when you use your black coloring, what brand do you use?
You said I'll say that again.
When you use the black for the hair?
What coloring? What brand of coloring?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I use both Wilson colors and I use Hobby Lobby colors. Hobby Lobby is the Happy Sunny something colors. They all pretty much do the same thing. But tomorrow we're going to go over the key to getting black. Okay, but you start out with chocolate icing. That's how you get the black tone.
Okay.
All right.
With chocolate.
Anybody else? Any questions so far?
You said start out with chocolate icing?
Yes. To get a deep black, you're gonna start out with chocolate icing.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So another thing with this recipe, if you're baking and you're wondering how much it actually bakes, if you do one batch of this, you can bake about 5.5 dozen cupcakes. You can bake a 8-inch round 3-layer cake and do it about a half a dozen cupcakes from it. It's so many variations to this one mix. All right. Any more questions? All right. So we good on questions. All right. I'm gonna meet you guys. So I wanted to go over a couple of the things that we're going to be doing for tomorrow night. So tonight, I would suggest if you're going to work along with me on tomorrow, go ahead and bake your cakes tonight. What you want to do is after your cakes have come out the oven and they've cooled and you let them sit there to chill or whatever, you want to go ahead and wrap your cake layers. Each layer, wrap it separately in saran wrap and put them in the freezer. You're going to leave them in the freezer until tomorrow. All right, so tomorrow you should already have your board for your cake drum that your cake is going to go on. Normally, I would tell you guys that, we usually do the upside down method. We're not doing the upside down method tomorrow because we're doing modern buttercream techniques tomorrow. So I normally always drill into everybody sharp edges, sharp edges. Well, this design doesn't call for sharp edges. It's a modern buttercream technique that I'm going to show you how to do. And that's how you get the ridged edges around your cake, but we normally try to take off. Well, it's a certain way that I put these ridges on there so that I can go back and paint those ridges at the end. So I'm going to show you all of those techniques on tomorrow. So tomorrow, what you will need is your cake layers. You're going to need some buttercream. You will also need a piping bag for your for the hair. And somebody asked me, what type of tip do you need to do the hair? I said, I emailed them and told them it's a small, all you need is a small star tip. So whatever, when you first started doing cakes, you had the star tip that you had to do the little dots on to make the design on the cake. The smallest star tip, not the very, very small one, but just a small star tip. Any star tip can make the hair. And depending on what kind of style you want your hair to be, you can use any smaller tip to get the texture of hair that you want. You may want to add, dreads or something to yours, and you would use a round tip for that. But it's kind of, you make this design the way you make it you. Okay. I emailed you guys the picture. If you looked on the attachment, there is the picture that goes along with the design. Now, on the download, it should be a Word format. If you don't have a Word format for it, email me and I'll send you the Word format. The reason why you need the Word format is so that you can resize the image for your cake. So you may not need the size image that I sent you guys at first, which was the one for an 8-inch cake, which is what I did originally. You may want to do it for a 6-inch cake, so you would have to resize the image to make it smaller. It's completely so simple. I promise you, it's so simple. And I will show you tomorrow when we actually do the designing part of the edible image. It's literally you're pulling one tab and bringing it down or bringing it in to make the image smaller or larger, okay? You don't have to be computer savvy for this. It's truly simple. So if you don't have the version of the document where you can make changes to or type on, there's always two versions of the digital downloads. There's a PDF version, and then there's also a doc version, which is the Word version of it, where you can actually go in, make changes, type on it, and all that. If you don't have that version of it, just send me an email to info@cakeking.com, and I'll send you the version where you can actually edit too, okay? You will need, let's see if you guys have any questions. Any questions so far?
When you say we need the board, we're not doing an upside down method, so we just need the regular cake board that it goes on, like
Yeah, so
8-inch board.
Yeah, that's it. So if you have an 8-inch cake, you put it on an 8-inch board. That's the size you'll need, and then you'll need your cake drum, which is the larger one that it goes on.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Are we doing the bubble?
Yes, you are going to do the bubble. So the fondant was actually for somebody asked me what was the fondant for. The fondant is for the bubble pop on there, which you'll need a little bit of pink color for, gel color. And also the fondant is also for the backing that goes on the back of your edible image, because we cut the edible image out onto a piece of fondant just to give it a nice backing on it so it can sit on something.
Okay.
Okay. Who got coronavirus?
I'm over here.
It's that roll.
Hello?
Who got corona land?
So I know corona too. Where's the lights off, right?
Let me clean my screen.
Get that roll.
So tomorrow, y'all, this cake not difficult. It's an easy cake. Now, let me tell y'all about Zoom. You have to be careful with Zoom because you can actually turn your own camera on and off on here. I usually turn everybody's off. So don't be like that woman that was on that video on her conference call at work. She was in the bathroom with the computer. Didn't know the camera was on.
Wow.
Look, it's a really, really cool platform, but it can also get you messed up.
Get you
Cheating on the Zoom. Can't be cheating
I'll
on
be
the Zoom.
sipping off the wine when we do the class tomorrow.
It's a turn class. This cake is fun, so it's meant to be fun. It's not a hard design. I'm excited about it because I've been wanting to teach this class, but I really didn't think it was going to be a concept that people could grasp through an online class. But we're going to test it out and see it. And you guys give me the feedback. If we need to stop at any point and slow down on something, we can do that on tomorrow. I ain't got nothing but time, so we ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, right. Ain't nobody going away. I was trying to make gelatin bubbles. Why did I think the bubble was made out of gelatin?
Oh, no, it's made out of fondant. So it's just fondant rolled into a small ball. And there's actually toothpicks on the back of the ball that go into the cake.
Okay. But it was fun still trying to learn how to do them.
Oh, ain't nothing wrong with learning something new now. YouTube University is anything.
Yes, I had fun trying to make one. I have one, but it's like sitting flat. But it looks different. I may try that on a different style cake.
And I think on the original, like the bubble gum cakes that they did for Marilyn Monroe, those cakes actually have gelatin balls where they see through. Like, if you want to experiment with that, go on YouTube. I ain't did it. Because they're fun to do the same thing, and I can make it look shiny just like gelatin.
Yes, I can't wait to learn that technique. Yes.
The fondant, you need pink and white.
Yeah, so it don't matter what color your backing is for that piece that you're gonna put it on, but you just need some fondant. And it's not even a lot. It's just really probably a little bit, a little ball enough just to do.
Oh yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is awesome.
So make sure tonight that you wrap your layers for your cake and get everything that you're gonna need that's on that supply list. Go ahead and put it in front of you for tomorrow if you're gonna be doing the cake with me. Now tomorrow, I'm gonna give you the option to if I need to look at what you're doing, we can jump in and look at it so we can actually do this together to make sure everybody come out with a nice cake. I like this a lot better than Facebook.
This is so awesome.
All right, y'all. So we got the baking part out the way for tonight. Tomorrow, make sure you on. You get ready to go early. If you're working along with me, if you have any questions, email me so that I can send you the document or whatever that you need so that we can get that out the way so you have everything you need for tomorrow.
Do you have a buttercream recipe?
My buttercream recipe is super easy. If it's not on the document, I can add it to the document too. Anytime I make a change to the document on my new website, it automatically emails you guys an entirely new document. So I can add the buttercream recipe on there. But my buttercream recipe is 4 sticks of unsalted butter, which is 1 pound of butter.
Right.
8 cups of powdered sugar. I use heavy creamer in there, a couple of teaspoons of heavy creamer, and flavoring.
And that wedding bells, yeah.
Yeah, I use wedding bells for that.
I can't wait to order me some.
Yeah. I promise you, y'all, that's the best flavoring that I have ever had. I've been knowing about it for a long time, but I made her actually start selling it.
Yeah, but he said,
I'm about a little bitty one first, then I'll get the gallon. Don't you got a coupon code for Esther Cakes?
For Etsy? Who? Esther?
Esther Cakes.
Nah, we ain't cool no more. She don't like me when I start making my own cone.
Okay, make sure your coupon code doesn't work.
So I think she deleted my code, but it used to be Cake King. So if it works, you can try it.
Oh wow. Right tomorrow.
You know, you mad when you doing something they doing.
That's it. I don't understand it. We all can eat.
I be trying to say that.
The community, we all can eat.
Everybody don't think like that.
I think about all the people every time I go down to Mexican now. We all can make it. It's not a competition out here. Come on.
We can. So I got y'all for the night. Tomorrow night, we're going to get straight into it now. The class may be longer tomorrow night, only because now I've done this cake in less than 45 minutes. I did it on it live in 45 minutes. So I know how long it takes to do it. So we're going to take our time in doing it so that we can make sure that everybody grasps all the concepts.
Your coupon code still works.
Oh, it didn't?
Yeah. teaches class
Yeah.
on the upside down.
Yeah.
But I need to learn that.
Oh, okay. So she ain't too hating.
Because it's still on there.
I have a quick question
Uh-huh.
about the border at the bottom. Is that a particular mold?
You can use any mold you want to. You can do just a regular pipe border, or if you got any funded mold at home, you can use that mold to go around there. Now I got that mold from what's the show? SoFlo, like a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And I got like a lot of different molds, but you can go get any mold from if you got a supply store around you just to do that around there. Y'all, I'm telling you, once you get this cake design right here, you can take any image and do the same thing to it on another cake. This cake, I did it in, I'm doing it in a 6-inch form. If I was to sell this 6-inch cake, I would probably sell it for like $150, and it literally took me 45 minutes to do.
Oh, that's what's up.
What about doing the earrings? Is there mold for the earrings?
Nope. All you need is anything circular. I use the top.
Because I have, okay, that's perfect what I said.
Like seriously, I just used the top that came on the disco dust. It was one of the largest dust things. Now I cut it out from there, but I'm gonna show you that too. Like all these molds that people be trying to sell you, you really don't need this stuff. A lot of stuff you got already at home. All right, any more questions?
Thank you.
Are y'all good? All right.
Yes.
So tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Be on time. Don't be late. You ain't gotta go to work anyway, so you might well be on time and learn something.
It's true.
All right, I will see y'all tomorrow night. I'm going to save this video, and I'll have it already downloaded and recorded so that I can put both of them together when the class ends, so you can go back through and download it and watch it at any time you want to. It's a lot different from being on Facebook now.
Oh, yes, I love it. I like it better.
Yeah, me too. It's cool.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow
Thank
night.
you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.